Hey Gear Seekers, I'm Nick. Look, I said I wasn't going to do any more Z690 motherboards, however, ASRock has been sleeping, they've been lagging, they've been pretty late to the punch, they only just sent over their first Z690 boards, so I thought it was only fair that I shared this opportunity with you guys. So we take a bit of a look at the ASRock Z690 Taichi, and as usual with our motherboard content, these videos are not reviews. I repeat, these videos are not reviews. So let's not review it. As usual with our motherboard content, these videos are not reviews, they're just overviews so we can take a bit of a look at all the itty bitty little things on the motherboard and, you know, all the features and all that stuff you guys are interested in, and what physically comes in the box when you buy a brand new board like this one. Again, not a review. We're not reviewing it. Okay, let's see what's in the box. And then we'll take a look at all of the, you know how these videos work. If not, hi, welcome to the channel. All right, ladies and gents, let's take a little bit of a look at the ASRock Z690 Taichi. But first of all, we need to get the motherboard out of the way so we can take a bit of a closer look at all of the things that come in the box. We've got this little double flappy box. First up, we've got the software setup guide. This will basically run you through setting up the BIOS and everything to do with the software side of this board. There's also this round circular plastic device, which has no business being in a motherboard box in 2021. Don't even know what this is anymore. Weird, right? Okay, there's also the quick installation guide, which, yeah, there's nothing quick about this. It's like a Harry Potter novel. Look how thick this thing is. Truth is, it's in like a bunch of different languages, right? There's also a keyring that's made out of some PCB, so some actual circuit board, some printed circuit board. It's got a motherboard printed on it. And then there's this. I thought this was a bit strange. Guess what this is? It's a keycap. It's got an MX stem on it, so you can put this on your custom keyboard if that's something you wanted to do. Not sure why they have this in the box. There's also a bunch of M.2 screws for the built-in M.2 slots on this board. Pretty standard stuff. There's some standoffs here too. There's also the GPU support bracket. Now this is actually a nice little addition with the board, considering a lot of GPUs are getting heavy and ASRock's thought of a way to support it straight out of the box. There's also a fan for the VRM cooling. Now this is optional. You do not need to plug this in, but depending on your case, you don't need to use this, let's be honest. It's just there because they can, right? ASRock's just adding stuff into the box for the sake of it. There's also a Wi-Fi antenna for the built-in Wi-Fi 6E and the Bluetooth, so get yourself on the internet and get all your wireless devices connected. There's also some SATA or SATA cables for your 2.5-inch SSDs or your spinning rush drives. There's this back panel USB 2.0 hub. Well, this basically plugs into the USB 2.0 port on the motherboard and gives you two ports for the rear of your system, considering they're kind of phasing out USB 2.0 with this board. It's only got one header, which we're going to look at in a sec. There's also this Velcro strap for cable management. Well, there's actually two of them in total. ASRock usually includes this with most of their boards, so pretty standard stuff here. And last but not least is the ASRock postcard, which I've joked about for years and years, saying, hey, I'm going to post this to someone, but I've actually never done that before. Let's get that board out. But here's something that you have to do with most ASRock boards. They don't have them in anti-static bags. You have to cut a bunch of cable ties to get the board off that foam backing, whatever they've got. Anyway, let's take a closer look at the ASRock Z690 Taichi. First up, we've got the front panel audio header. There's a 4-pin 12-volt RGB header, a 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB header. There's two PWM fan headers. There's also a TPM header, which you do not need to use for Windows 11. It's built into the CPU. There's a USB 2.0 header. There's a SATA connector, which is a secure SATA connector. There's also a postcode LED screen, a power and a reset button, and then last but not least, the front panel connector for your lights and all your switches and all that jazz. Next to that, there is two more PWM fan connectors. There's 6 SATA ports or SATA ports for your 2.5-inch SSDs or your spinning rush drives. There's also a right angle USB 3.2 header. You'll notice there's a USB port on the board. This is their secure USB port. There's a USB Type-C front panel header, another USB 3.2 front panel header, the 24-pin power connector to send juice to your brand new Z690 Taichi, and 2 more 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB headers. There's two more PWM fan connectors on the top of the board above the RAM slots. And if we scoot on by to the other side, you'll notice there's two 8-pin EPS power connectors for CPU power. I just wanted to mention underneath the CPU socket as well, there's two more PWM fan connectors on this board. And if we're looking at this part of the board, because we're in this region of the board, let's take a look at the PCIe slots. The top slot is a by 16 PCIe Gen 5 slot. The middle slot is a by 8 PCIe Gen 5 slot. The bottom slot, which has also got that silver shroud on it, is a PCIe Gen 4 slot by 4, and there's a by 1 PCIe Gen 3 slot. This board uses Intel's Z690 chipset. It does not need to be actively cooled. All of the faux cooling stuff you're seeing here is basically just for aesthetics. Speaking of just aesthetics, well, not really, let's be honest. It features a 20-phase digital VRM setup. It's got two heat sinks. There's one on the top of the board above the CPU socket. And much like the other Z690 boards we've seen, almost the entire I/O cover is a heatsink, and there's a heat pipe that connects both of those heat sinks together to evenly distribute the heat. This is Intel's brand new LGA 1700 socket that supports Intel's 12th gen CPUs. Let's just open that socket up and take a little bit of a look. It's got 1700, well actually technically 1800 contact pins for those 12th gen CPUs, if that's what you're interested in. I mean, you are if you're watching this video, let's be honest. And we've done a full deep dive into cooler compatibility. I'll put a link to that in the description if you want to take a look. But let's flip the board over quickly, take a bit of a look at what's going on here. We've got an almost full cover backplate for not just aesthetics, but for additional cooling on the back side of the board. Along the edge where the 24-pin power connector is, you can see that there's an RGB strip. This is pretty standard for the Taichi boards as well. For RAM compatibility, we've got 4 DDR5 RAM slots, which support a total of 128 gigs of DDR5 memory at 6400 mega transfers overclocked. All right, let's get the heatsinks off the M.2 slots on this board. This board has a total of 3 M.2 slots, which is quite odd for Z690, but you know, it is what it is. The bottom slot, which is on the right hand side of your screen, is a PCIe Gen 3 M.2 slot, and the others are PCIe Gen 4 M.2 slots. For rear I/O, we've got a BIOS flashback button. We've got 2 antenna connectors for the built-in Wi-Fi 6E, an HDMI port for integrated graphics, some USB 3.2 ports, 7.1 digital surround sound with optical and SPDIF output, 2 Thunderbolt ports, a gigabit Ethernet port, a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port, and 2 more USB 3.2 ports. This is quite an interesting layout for rear I/O. We don't usually see the audio in the middle here. As I mentioned, ASRock's pretty late to the party with their Z690 boards. Now they have released a few, but the Taichi is the one that most people who are buying ASRock boards usually hold out for. And here it is finally about a month or something late now. That's probably just to do with everything going on in the world with shortages and raw materials and everything like that. And things are just taking time to produce. So yeah, here's the Taichi. Now, a few little things I noticed about this board that kind of don't make sense, right? And again, not a review, just some observations. The first thing I noticed is most of these Z690 boards in this tier of board, we've seen things like 4 M.2 slots, right? This only has 3. And they always do this with the Taichi boards. They make them look nice, but they always gimp them with things like less storage options. Other than that, they've added stuff like gigabit Ethernet as well as the 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. Just do one Ethernet port for this board. You don't really need to unless you're trying to do something else with it, like use it as a home server board or whatnot. You don't really need 2 Ethernet adapters on a board like this. It just doesn't make sense. And again, I'm just slightly confused as to why it has certain things and it doesn't have other things. Especially because if you're looking at getting your hands on the ASRock Z690 Taichi, they're going for around $589 US at the time of filming this video. Not sure about the Australian pricing. That'll just have to do though. However, it does have other little things like Thunderbolt and whatnot. So you are getting some features back, but it doesn't have DisplayPort output, which a lot of people have actually been talking about with these Z690 boards. It has HDMI, which is fine. But other than that, I think it looks like it's going to be a pretty solid board. Anyways, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learnt something about this board or whatever it is that you're doing here when you check out this video. Once again, thank you so very much for watching. I'm your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. You peek, we seek. And thank you very much for watching. Catch you next time.